I see we have some visitors. Welcome. Very few people here today, but that's okay. If you see somebody that you miss, pick up the call or pick up the phone and call them or text them or something and tell them so. Okay? Okay, Diane told me to take 5 minutes, which is good. That's what I'm going to take. I'm talking about, she wants me to talk about hope today. I'm going to read a scripture, and you'll excuse me if I don't stumble. Praise be the Lord, for he shows his wonderful love to me. When I was besieged in a city, in my alarm I said, I am cut off from your sight, yet you hear my cry for mercy when I call you for help. Love the Lord, all his saints. The Lord preserves the faithful, but the proud he pays back in full. Be strong and take heart, all you who hope in the Lord. Without hope, I would not be standing here today.
Amen.
Right. I consider hope a verb, an action word. Without it, like I said, I wouldn't be here. About 30 years ago, I suffered a spiritual breakdown, you can say. I was a drunk, is what it was. I ended up in treatment and then started on my recovery. I'll never forget the day after, the day after, the morning after my girlfriend took me to treatment. Woke up scared. My first thought was, it's Sunday. I've got to, at least watch First Baptist on television. I was a member, my girlfriend was a member of First Baptist. And I started watching. And his sermon was up. I understood everything that he said thoroughly. And today, it's like, Lynn, you were, you were suffering from a hangover. But I understood what he said, and his sermon on hope helped me become who I am today. I was born and raised in a Christian church. Went to church all my life. My daddy was a deacon, but I completely, once I got away from home, went away. Without the Lord and without hope, I have nothing. I've said that several times, and I hope y'all will agree here. We feel sometimes, at least I do, that life has just given us bad. We can't manage spiritually. I'm not talking any other way, but spiritually, we're just completely gone sometimes. I am, even today, when I wake up think, and I have to do my daily Bible readings. I have to get back online and start putting one foot in front of the other and doing right by the Lord. And I'm so thankful today also, I'd like to add, for this church. For NCC, the denomination. It's totally helped me 100% to worship with gay and lesbians. It took a while for me to get here, but I got here. And for that, I'm very grateful. But again, I'd like to say and remind, and hopefully y'all might look at it, that hope is a verb. It's an action word. It's something that Marcy might want to think about. Look at that face. You're trying to figure it out, aren't you? How can that be, Liam? But that's about all I have to say.
Thank you.
I'd like to tell you what MCC means to me. But first, before I begin, I'd like to acknowledge something here that when the Reverend Diane asked me to say a few words, I thought, wow, I'm not a speaker. Number two, really got to thinking about it. I appreciate the opportunity to be able to express myself to this congregation and to tell you about where Mike and I have been. So I'd like to do that. Back in the summer of 1999, Mike and I met in Augusta, MCC. And at the time, I was broken spiritually and emotionally. Broken, I had just lost a 27-year-old sister 2 years prior to giving birth to our firstborn. 2 years later, my dad passed away with lung cancer. And then we just found out my brother had a terminal disease and was incurable. And I was just broken. Not having been to church in years, feeling broken, for hearing that I was not worthy of God's love, for being different. But all that changed the moment I came into the MCC service. When Mike and I got together, we found ourselves not only compatible emotionally and spiritually, and I think that's what really bonded us, because we talked about it often. We were spiritually yoked, and we were, and we felt like we were being nurtured from this church, MCC in Augusta. And we were just living high on the hog at the time. We just really felt blessed. In the beginning, the church was a small office downtown, a congregation of 25. A year later, the congregation doubled and moved to an empty doctor's office, and we had our first committed ceremony. 2 years later, the church purchased an old historical Presbyterian church downtown. It had stained glass pews. It was a beautiful church, and Mike was on the board, and he negotiated the purchase of that church for our church. And I just joined the choir. During our time in Augusta, we visited several other MCC churches, Atlanta, Charleston, and even had the opportunity to go to Hawaii. We were visiting his son, and we got to go to a meeting there. And we also had the opportunity to attend an MCC conference in Valdosta as delegates from our church, and got to meet Troy Perry. We were involved with several fundraisers and attended several of the congregation's weddings and funerals. Our social life literally consisted around the church. And about in 2006, the pastor of our church was named Jeff Boyan, and he was approached by a local newspaper, and they wanted to do an article on gay couples in the church, and Jeff asked us if we wouldn't mind being a part of that. And we said, yeah, sure, we don't mind. We figured it's going to be a little article in the paper and stuck back in the back of the paper. And they came to our house, and here we were sitting on the couch. They took pictures of us and the dog in the front and asked us, about our beginnings and how we met and everything. And we were glad to tell them our story. And then the following weekend, I guess it was Thursday, we got a call. One of our friends said, "Wow, did you see the article in the paper?" I said, "No." Kind of played dumb. "Well, you need to see it." And we didn't realize what they had done. They put us on the front cover. Now, get this. This is a local newspaper, a weekly edition, and it's on every corner in Aiken, South Carolina, and Augusta, Georgia. So you couldn't help but walk out of the store and see it. Mike and I sitting there on the couch with the dog, and at the bottom it says, "With this ring." We kind of flipped out. I did anyhow, because I hadn't come up to my family yet. So Mike suggested that we need to go over to see my mom and talk to her and show her the article. And I'll never forget the words she said. The exact words were, "You're kidding, this has got to be a joke, right?" "Come on, please, just read the article," and he laughed. That was my coming out. But in 2007, we had decided that we wanted to try Costa Rica. And it took us 4 months from the time we made the decision to move to sell literally everything we had. Everything. Except for the dog. And we loaded up in the car, and we took just towels and bed sheets with us. And we made that drive to Costa Rica. Now, I don't suggest it to anybody nowadays that we didn't know. We didn't speak Spanish. It took us longer to get through the borders than it did to drive through the country. We were at the mercy of little boys that would come up to the front, pick me. They wanted you to pick them to help you get through the papering process. And you had, of course, you paid them. We did bring clothes. We were told that at these border crossings that the kids would ask for clothes or whatever you had. And we knew if they needed clothes, and that's what we brought. Costa Rica was an experience that we enjoyed. We went to a little community called Playa Babuco, which is on the western side of the country. It was outside of a tourist town, Jaco, and there we were in a gated community. Mike, being the community involver person that he is, we found this school right down the street. This was a typical school. It was a one-room. They taught grades 1 through 6 in that room. There was less than 30 children in the room. The school operated as same as it did throughout the country, that if you didn't have over 30 students, you were only allowed one teacher. They had literally nothing. They had nothing. We went there. Mike got the community involved and provided, through the donations of the community, chalkboard and bulletin boards and file cabinets and pencils and papers. And we actually started teaching art class on a Tuesday afternoon. And part of the deal was we weren't allowed to be part of the curriculum, but if the students wanted to stay after school, they could go to the art class, and every one of them did. I'll never forget what the students were saying as we pulled up. We'd always hear, "Hey, gringos, hey, gringos." Gringos are here. I studied Spanish. I couldn't speak it. Mike never studied it, yet they understood him. Everything he said. Look at me. I said, "Do this," and they did it. It was amazing how he was able to communicate with them. But after a year, actually a year and a half of being in Playa Babuco, we moved to San Ramon. During that time, we were involved with 2 missionary churches, and we got very lucky to have found English-speaking churches that we could go to, let alone accept us. We were taking a chance there. But the first one had no problem with it, and we moved. And the second one was the Nicaraguan church, and Mike and I was always kidding each other. We were wondering, is this our last Sunday to go before they realize what we are? And they never did say anything. Matter of fact, toward the end there, the preacher had stated, "I don't care who you are. Anybody's going to come to this church is welcome." And he looked right at us. I knew we were good to go. I appreciate that. But then we decided to come back in around 13, and we made our priority list. And right at the top of the priority list, it had to have an MCC church. So we found a place in St. Pete and immediately made plans to move there and became involved with the King of Peace Church. While we were there, I was in the choir, and Mike had got into several Bible studies. And we finished a course right before we left. It was a workshop, a 3-minute workshop called Creating a Life That Matters. It was pretty intense. But then we decided our focus went to my mom. She was not doing well, and we decided to try to get her closer to us. And the only place we could find, we couldn't afford St. Pete because, St. Pete's pretty expensive to live, was Havana. We found this perfect house that had this lake and had this separate dwelling where we could fix up our own mom. And it just worked out. It was like an answered prayer. And so I think we really do because of God. Of course, we all say, we know that. It's funny how we end up places we want to, how did I do this? Well, just look back. God does answer prayer. He answered our prayer. But I'm convinced that MCC has been a common spiritual bond and has sustained us in all the years we've been together. Why MCC? The history of the church clearly shows us that in the name of religion, wars were fought, innocent people were persecuted, tortured, and even burned at the stake. And back then, and today, we have the same self-righteous minded individuals pointing fingers and passing judgments because someone is different from what they determine is normal. Well, when I come into MCC, I don't feel nothing but acceptance here. I feel love. I feel non-judgmental people. I just feel very at home, and I appreciate having a place like this. How appropriate when I see the sermon, how blessed are you? We're pretty blessed, thanks to MCC. But make no mistake, God does not make mistakes. He loves us just the way we are. And God has always been very explicit in telling us what He wants of us. He wants us to lift one another up. He wants us to pray for one another. He wants us to encourage one another. I feel that MCC is out there, front and center, doing just what God has commanded us to do, to love one another. And that's the reason we are part of MCC. Thank you.
So every Sunday you'll see me up here. Every Sunday you'll see me up here playing the drum, looking at everybody to see if you ain't getting into it. Because if you're not getting into it, I start beating it, playing until I see somebody start waving, fanning or something. So I'm like, God, okay, I'm doing good. How you feel about that? And I talk to God day and night. And sometimes I even feel that He pats me on my back and say, good job. What am I of use? Just because society don't see me as a little man, they want me to roll up and die. I just throw up my hands. I wish the world was a better place for little old me, so they would open up their hearts and minds to truly see that I am He and He is me. God made me this way. I didn't choose to be. As I grow older, things are getting much better. Finding my place in life and seeing things that matter. God, you made me in your image. You obviously had a plan. So I'll just keep on going and leave it in your hand. One thing I know for sure, God makes no mistakes. There must be a reason why I'm standing here today. To tell you my story and take you on my journey. Some may laugh or even think it's funny. Would you walk a mile in my shoes so you can plainly see that I am He and He is me? Yeah. Would you do me a favor and look to your neighbor and say, neighbor, I accept you for who you are.
I accept you for who you are.
What else would make them change?
Y'all have a neighbor?
Once again, say neighbor.
Neighbors.
I am your family.
I am your family.
Thank you.